You're a joke, Lewis. The words sliced through the cold morning air at Fort Bravestone like a blade. Amara Lewis didn't look up. Her hands kept organizing rounds in the supply crate, each cartridge placed with the precision of someone who knew exactly how much each grain of gunpowder weighed. Sergeant Miller let out a harsh laugh, the sound echoing through the logistics tent. Look at this, folks. Kitchen girl wants to play soldier. 3 other soldiers stepped closer, heavy boots crushing the wet grass. Amara could smell stale coffee on Miller's breath, mixed with the metallic scent of freshly cleaned weapons. She knew that smell. She knew the sound of bolts being racked, the click of magazines being locked in place. She'd known it since she was 8, when her grandfather Ezekiel taught her that listening was more important than talking. You know what your problem is, Lewis? Miller leaned in, invading her personal space. You think you belong here, but look at you. Old jacket, no rank, no real experience. You're not a soldier. You're just a civilian who landed a support job. Amara finally looked up. There was no anger in her eyes, no fear, just something Miller couldn't quite read, something that unsettled him. It was the same stillness Ezekiel had when he hunted in the Georgia mountains, when he used to say, "Noise is for amateurs, granddaughter. A pro works in silence. Answer me when I talk to you." Miller slammed his fist on the table, making the ammo boxes jump. "I heard you, Sergeant," Amara said, her voice low and controlled. "I finished listening." Her tone was respectful, but there was something underneath it that made Miller pause. He couldn't quite pinpoint what bothered him. Maybe it was how she hadn't flinched when he got in her face. Maybe it was the way she held things, like every object was just an extension of her hands. "You know what I think?" Miller smirked, but there was no warmth behind it. "I think you should stick to what you're good at. Kitchens, cleaning, paperwork. Leave the real work to the people who actually know what they're doing." Amara went back to sorting the ammunition. Each motion was smooth, almost hypnotic. Miller couldn't stop watching her hands. Something didn't add up. There was nothing inexperienced about those hands. "Hey, Miller!" Corporal Jensen appeared at the tent's entrance, out of breath. "Colonel wants everyone at the shooting range. Now." Miller gave Amara one last suspicious glance before heading out. She kept working, but the air felt different, charged, like something was about to shift. She felt it in her bones, the same way she used to feel it when her grandfather would whisper, "Storm's coming, girl. Best be ready." Out at the shooting range, Colonel Davis paced slowly, his face as stern as stone. 50 meters ahead, paper silhouette targets swayed gently in the breeze. Amara stood at the back of the group, nearly invisible among the uniformed soldiers. "Gentlemen, we've got a problem," Davis began. 3 of you failed last week's qualification test. 3, in an elite unit. Nervous murmurs rippled through the group. Amara watched in silence, noticing which men avoided the colonel's eyes, which ones clenched their fists. She saw what others didn't. She saw fear. "Today we're settling this," Davis continued. "I want the 3 best shooters on this base. I want precision. I want consistency. I want excellence." He stopped directly in front of Miller. "Because if you can't hit a stationary target at 50 meters, how the hell are you supposed to protect your brothers out there?" The test began. One by one, the soldiers stepped up to the line. Some hit center mass, others missed badly. Amara watched every shot, every stance, every breath. She saw mistakes before the shots were even fired. She saw when someone gripped too tight, when breathing was off, when the trigger was yanked instead of squeezed. "Lewis!" Miller's voice cut through her focus. "Since you love staring so much, why don't you show everyone how it's done?" Scattered laughter broke out. Amara felt all eyes land on her. She felt the weight of their expectations, the judgment, the disbelief. It was just like her grandfather had warned her. One day, they'll test you, not to see you succeed, but to watch you fail. And when that day comes, remember this: ghosts don't talk, ghosts act. Amara stepped up to the firing line. She picked up the standard-issue Beretta M9 and instantly sensed something was off. The weapon was dirty, uncalibrated, with a hair trigger. Someone had tampered with it. Someone wanted to make sure she failed. She closed her eyes for a moment, hearing Ezekiel's voice. "Adapt, girl. A good shooter adjusts to the weapon. A great shooter makes the weapon adjust to them." She squared her stance. Her body found perfect balance. She raised the weapon, and the atmosphere changed. The laughter stopped. Conversations died. There was something about the way she moved, something that didn't fit the image of a clueless civilian. "Start whenever you're ready," Miller said, but his voice didn't carry the same confidence anymore. Amara took a deep breath, let it out slowly. The world around her disappeared. No more Fort Bravestone, no more watching eyes, no more pressure. Just her, the weapon, and the target. Like those icy mornings in Georgia when Ezekiel used to say, "Perfect shots don't come from strength, girl. They come from peace." The first shot cracked through the air like thunder. Dead center. Perfect. The second shot followed 2 seconds later, even more precise. The third sliced through the silence like a blade. Flawless. Amara lowered the weapon and turned to face the group. 50 faces stared at her in absolute silence. No more jokes, no more scoffs. Just one unspoken question hanging in the air. Who the hell is this woman? Impossible, Miller whispered, but his voice betrayed the doubt creeping in. Amara walked over to him, handed him the gun and said simply, "I'm done." But everyone knew she wasn't done. Not even close. She had just begun. And what's coming next will shake Fort Bravestone to its core. If this story has already gotten under your skin, hit that like button and subscribe, because what's coming next is even more powerful. Who is Amara Lewis, really? What did those 3 perfect shots reveal about her past, and why does Colonel Davis look like he's seen something he thought he'd never see again? The silence that follows Amara's 3 perfect shots is thick as fog. Colonel Davis walks toward the target with measured steps, each thud of his boots echoing across the shooting range like a military drum. 50 meters feels like a lifetime when you're carrying the weight of 50 stunned stares. 3 shots. 3 bullseyes. 2-inch grouping. Davis examines the target with a magnifying glass, his voice cutting through the crisp morning air. "With a weapon that wasn't calibrated for you, under less than ideal conditions." Amara stands still, her worn leather jacket fluttering gently in the wind. She doesn't smile, doesn't flinch, doesn't give off the slightest hint of arrogance. She just waits, just like her grandfather taught her. After the shot, silence speaks louder than words. Miller walks up to the target too, brows furrowed in disbelief. "Got lucky. 3 shots don't prove anything." "Lucky?" Davis turns to him, raising an eyebrow. "Sergeant, I've seen a lot in 30 years, but I've never seen luck pull off a grouping like this." The colonel walks back toward Amara, his eyes scanning every detail of her stance. There's something familiar about it, something that tugs at an old memory. The way she squares her shoulders, the slight lift of her chin, the way her eyes constantly scan the environment. "Lewis, is that right?" Davis stops in front of her. "Where are you from?" "Georgia, sir. Rabun County." "Military family?" Amara pauses for a moment. Not out of fear, but the kind of pause someone takes when deciding how much to reveal. "My grandfather served, sir." "What unit?" "I can't say, sir. He never talked about it." Davis nods, like that explains everything. He knows that kind of silence. He knows the weight of undocumented missions, of operations that don't officially exist, of men who save lives and never get credit. "He teach you to shoot?" "Among other things." Miller jumps in, voice full of irritation. "Colonel, with all due respect, a civilian shouldn't be involved in military drills. She has no formal training, no combat experience, no what, Sergeant?" Davis still hasn't taken his eyes off Amara. "No ability to put 3 rounds center mass at 50 meters? Because based on what I just saw, she clearly does." "That doesn't mean anything." Miller's losing control. "Anyone can have a lucky day. But under real pressure, when it's life or death, she'll freeze." They always freeze. Amara turns to him. Her eyes are like dark glass, reflecting everything, revealing nothing. "Sergeant, can I ask you something?" "Go ahead. Have you ever killed someone?" The question slices the air like a razor. Miller hesitates, jaw tightening. "That's none of your business." "No, it's not." Amara nods. "But I'll tell you something. The first time you take someone's life, it's not your aim that shakes. It's everything else. The silence that follows is different, heavier, charged with something everyone feels but no one wants to name." Davis narrows his eyes, like he's seeing Amara for the first time. "How do you know that?" "My grandfather told me. said the difference between a shooter and a soldier isn't accuracy, it's what you do after the shot. And what do you do after the shot? Amara pulls something from her jacket pocket. It's an old, faded photo of a black man in a military uniform. Not one anyone there recognizes. No visible insignia. No unit ID. Just a man with the same eyes as Amara, holding a rifle that looked like it was built for him. You pray it was the last one. Davis takes the photo gently, like it might break. He studies the man's face, searching for clues, something to help him understand what he's just witnessed. There's something in those eyes, something painfully familiar. What was your grandfather's name? Ezekiel Lewis. Did he have a call sign? Amara hesitates again. This is the question she hoped would never come, the one that could change everything. Shade. The photo slips from Davis's fingers. The sound of it hitting the ground echoes like a gunshot from years past. Every person nearby turns toward him. Davis suddenly looks 10 years older. Impossible. His voice is a whisper. Shade Lewis is dead. He died 15 years ago on a mission in Somalia. He died 3 years ago, Amara corrects, kneeling to pick up the photo. Cancer. But only after he taught me everything he knew. Shade Lewis didn't teach anyone. He was a lone wolf, worked solo, trusted no one. He trusted me. Amara places the photo back in her pocket. Because I was the only family he had, and because he knew one day I'd need it. Davis turns to the group of soldiers still watching from a distance. Some have heard the name. Others have no clue who Shade Lewis was. But all of them feel the shift in the air, like a ghost just walked onto the shooting range. Dismissed, Davis orders. Everyone, except Lewis. The soldiers scatter, but none of them leave completely. They linger nearby, pretending to stay busy while listening closely. Miller's the last to leave, shooting Amara one last venomous glance before disappearing. You know who I am? Davis asks once they're alone. Yes, sir. Colonel Marcus Davis, commander of the 75th Special Operations Division, served in Iraq, Afghanistan, and a few other places that don't exist on paper. And do you know how I know your grandfather? He saved your life. Kandahar, 2009. You were pinned down by insurgents, no ammo, no comms. He came out of nowhere, took out 6 targets in under 3 minutes, and vanished before you could thank him. Davis closes his eyes, like he's watching the memory unfold. He told you that? No. I read it in his journal. He wrote everything down. Every mission, every shot, every life saved. He said, if you ever take a life, you better remember who you saved. Why are you here, Amara? Because he told me that one day I'd meet people who needed to learn. And when that day came, I'd know what to do. Davis glances back at the distant target. 3 perfect holes, grouped like they came from a machine. But they didn't. They came from a woman carrying the blood of a legend. You looking to enlist? No, sir. I want to teach. Teach what? Amara turns to where Miller had walked off, her eyes tracing the path he took. That a ghost doesn't have a color, or a gender, or an age. A ghost has one thing, purpose. And in that moment, Marcus Davis knows Fort Bravestone will never be the same again, because the ghost has returned. 2 weeks later, Amara is on her knees in the base kitchen, scrubbing the floor with an old brush. The soap stings her hands, leaving her skin raw and red. The smell of disinfectant mixed with rancid grease makes her eyes water. But she doesn't stop, doesn't complain. She works in silence, as always. Miller appears at the kitchen door, a cruel look of satisfaction on his face. Well, look where you ended up, Lewis. Right back where you belong. Amara doesn't look up. She keeps scrubbing, every motion methodical and controlled. The sound of the brush against the ceramic floor echoes through the empty kitchen. Remember those little hero fantasies of yours? Miller steps closer, his boots stopping just inches from her hand. Reality finally caught up with you. Colonel Davis might have been impressed with your little tricks, but the general wasn't. Finally, Amara stops scrubbing. She knows what's coming next. She feels it in the air, just like she used to feel when a storm crept over the Georgia mountains. Last week's exercise. Remember that? Miller grins, but there's nothing friendly about it. When you tried to warn about the simulated enemy sniper positions? Amara remembers. She remembers every detail. During the urban combat drill, she spotted how the blue team had placed their snipers in exposed positions. 3 blind spots that any seasoned insurgent would have exploited. She tried to warn the exercise commander, but was ignored. After all, she was just a logistics civilian. The drill ended with 7 simulated casualties. 7 dead soldiers because no one listened to the woman who supposedly knew nothing about combat. The general was furious. 7 losses in a basic exercise. Someone had to take the fall. Miller crouches next to Amara, his voice low and venomous. Guess who got chosen as the scapegoat? I warned them about the sniper positions. You interfered in a military operation without clearance, broke the chain of command, questioned the judgment of superior officers. Miller snatches the brush from her hand. Now you get to stay down here on your knees, remembering where you stand. Amara finally looks up. There's no anger in her eyes, no frustration, just a deep, unsettling calm that makes Miller instinctively lean back. My grandfather once told me a story, she says, her voice low but clear, about a soldier who got punished for saving his unit. You know what his punishment was? Miller doesn't answer, but he can't look away. Latrine duty for a month. And you know what he did during that month? Don't care. He studied. He studied every enemy move, every tactic, every weakness. And when the time came, he was ready. Amara takes the brush back. Ghosts aren't in a hurry, Sergeant. Ghosts wait. Miller stands up abruptly, knocking over the bucket of dirty water. The filth spreads across the floor, undoing all her cleaning. Clean it up. He storms out, slamming the door behind him. Amara looks at the mess on the floor. She grabs a rag and starts cleaning again. But this time, something is different. There's a new energy in her movements, a purpose that wasn't there before. That night, after everyone's asleep, Amara slips out of her quarters. She moves through the base shadows like a cat. She knows every patrol route, every blind spot, every moment when the guards switch shifts. Ezekiel taught her that information is power, and power comes from watching. She reaches the shooting range. It's dark and deserted. No targets set up, no live ammo. But she doesn't need any of it. She simply steps onto the firing line and assumes the perfect stance. Inhales, exhales, raises her arms like she's holding a rifle, aims into the black horizon, and pulls the imaginary trigger. Bang! The sound barely escapes her lips, almost a whisper. But in her mind, the shot cracks like thunder. She sees the target at 100 meters, 200, 300. She sees the wind, the humidity, the arc of the bullet. She sees everything Ezekiel taught her to see. You don't need a gun to be a marksman, girl. You need your mind. The gun's just a tool. The mind, that's the weapon. She repeats the motion. Breathe, aim, fire. Breathe, aim, fire. Each invisible shot is flawless. Each imagined target drops with perfect precision. For an hour, she trains in the dark, silent, unseen. When she returns to the barracks, there's a shadow waiting for her. Amara stops, muscles tight, ready for anything. But the figure that steps from the dark isn't a threat. It's Private Martinez, a young recruit who arrived at the base 2 weeks after her. His eyes are red, like he's been crying. Lewis? His voice trembles. Can I talk to you? Amara nods. They sit on the steps outside the barracks, the silence of the night wrapping around them like a blanket. I saw what you did at the range, Martinez whispers. Those 3 shots, and I saw what they did to you afterward. So, I can't hit anything. I fail every test. Miller said if I don't improve by the end of the week, I'm out. He swallows hard. My family, they're counting on me. My dad lost his job. My mom's sick. If I get discharged, Amara looks at the kid beside her. She sees the desperation in his eyes, the weight on his shoulders. It's the same weight she carried when Ezekiel died, when she realized she was alone in the world. You want to learn? More than anything. Then meet me here tomorrow, midnight. Bring your training rifle. Martinez looks at her like she just handed him the world. Why? Why are you helping me? Amara stands up, her words echoing in the dark like a vow. Because ghosts don't leave people lost in the dark. And at that moment, as Martinez watches her disappear into the shadows, he realizes he's just met someone different. Someone who can turn failure into victory, fear into courage, weakness into strength. The problem is, not everyone at Fort Bravestone is ready for that kind of change. And what's coming next will test more than just Amara's skill. It'll test her ability to survive in a world that prefers its ghosts to stay buried. 3 weeks had passed since Amara started secretly training Martinez. Every night after midnight, they met at the abandoned shooting range. She taught without unnecessary words, correcting his posture with a light touch, adjusting his breathing with a silent gesture. Don't force the trigger. Let it come to you. Her voice cut through the darkness like a sharpened blade. The bullet already knows where it wants to go. You just need to let it follow the path. Martinez lowered the weapon, frustration clear on his face. I can't do it, Lewis. My hand shakes. My heart races. I fear. What? You're afraid to fail. That fear is making your body tremble before the shot even leaves the barrel. Amara stepped beside him. My grandfather used to say the difference between a shooter and a killer isn't accuracy. It's how you deal with fear. How do you control something you don't even understand? You don't control it. You accept it. She took the weapon from his hands. Fear of failure. Fear of disappointing others. Fear of not being good enough. It's all normal. But when you accept fear, it stops controlling you. Amara took her stance. Even in near total darkness, her movements flowed like water. She inhaled deeply, let the air go slowly, and pulled the trigger. The shot echoed across the empty field. Center? Martinez asked. Always. She handed the gun back. Now you. But this time, don't shoot to hit. Shoot to learn. Martinez hesitated for a moment, then stepped up. This time something was different. His muscles were looser, his breathing under control. He fired. The impact on the target sounded different, more solid, closer to center. Better. Amara nodded. Again. They trained until sunrise. When Martinez finally landed 3 consecutive shots near the center, his eyes filled with tears. Thank you, he whispered. I don't even know how to repay you. Don't thank me yet. The real test is tomorrow. The next day, the shooting range buzzed with soldiers gathering for the monthly qualification test. Martinez stood among them, nervous but determined. Amara watched from a distance, back to her duties in the kitchen, but her eyes tracked every move. Miller stalked between the shooters like a predator. Martinez, you're up. Let's see if you can avoid embarrassing the base this time. Martinez stepped to the line. His hands trembled slightly, but he remembered Amara's words. Accept the fear, don't fight it. First shot, center. Second shot, center. Third shot, center. The silence that followed was deafening. Miller checked the target 3 times like he couldn't believe what he was seeing. Murmurs rippled through the group. Fluke, Miller muttered. Beginner's luck. But when Martinez repeated the performance during 2 more rounds, no one was talking about luck anymore. Something had changed. The recruit who couldn't hit anything now shot like a seasoned pro. Who taught you? Miller grabbed Martinez by the front of his uniform. Nobody improves like that overnight. Who was it? I trained, Sergeant. I studied. I practiced. Liar. Miller slammed his fist into Martinez's chest. Someone helped you, and I'm going to find out who. That night, Miller began a quiet surveillance. He knew something was going on at Fort Bravestone. Poor shooters were suddenly becoming sharpshooters. There was a pattern, and he was going to find it. At midnight, he saw Martinez leave the barracks. He followed at a safe distance, keeping to the shadows. When the young recruit reached the range, Miller hid behind the munitions shed. Amara was already there, but this time, she wasn't alone. 3 other young recruits stood with her. All of them had failed the last qualification test. Tonight we work on movement, Amara announced, her voice low but clear. Shooting while standing still is easy. Shooting while moving, that's an art. Miller watched, both furious and fascinated, as Amara guided them across the range, teaching them to fire from different angles, to adapt to imaginary obstacles. Every movement was precise, every instruction clear and sharp. Don't think of the weapon as something external. It's part of you now. When you move, it moves. When you breathe, it breathes. One of the recruits, a young woman named Thompson, was struggling. I can't keep my aim steady while I move. That's because you're trying to control it. Let the sight float. Your body will find its own balance. Amara demonstrated, gliding across the range like an armed dancer. Fluid, not rigid. Thompson tried again. This time her movement was smoother, her aim more stable. She fired, near the center. I get it now. Her eyes lit up. It's like the weapon is part of me. Exactly. Now you're starting to understand. Miller had seen enough. He slipped away quietly, mind racing with fury and opportunity. He now had everything he needed to take Amara down for good. The next morning, Amara was pouring coffee at the officers' table when Miller burst into the mess hall with 2 MPs at his side. "Amara Lewis," he called out loudly, making sure everyone could hear. "You are under arrest for improper conduct, unauthorized training of military personnel, and violation of base security protocols." The mess hall went dead silent. All eyes turned to Amara, who didn't move. The coffee pot was still in her hand. "You have the right to remain silent." "Sergeant Miller." Colonel Davis's voice cracked like a whip through the air. He entered the mess hall, his face a mask of command. "What's going on here?" "Colonel, I discovered that civilian Lewis has been conducting unauthorized training with our soldiers. She what? Dramatically improved the shooting scores of 4 recruits who were about to be discharged?" Davis stepped up to Miller. "Because I have yesterday's results right here. Martinez, perfect score. Thompson, perfect score. Gonzalez, perfect score. Williams, perfect score." Miller hesitated. "Yes, sir, but her methods worked." Davis turned to Amara. "Lewis, can you explain how you turned 4 struggling shooters into qualified marksmen in under a month?" Amara placed the coffee pot down gently, every movement deliberate. "I taught them what my grandfather taught me, sir. The weapon doesn't make the shooter. The shooter makes the weapon. And you did all this without permission?" "Yes, sir." "Knowing you could be punished?" "Yes, sir." Davis circled her like a general inspecting his troops. "Why risk it?" "Because ghosts don't leave people behind." The colonel stopped in front of her, studying her face. There was something there he recognized, something deeper than skill. The same quiet resolve he once saw in her grandfather, long ago. "Miller, you're dismissed." "But Colonel—" "Dismissed!" Miller stormed out, his face red with humiliation. Davis waited until the doors closed before turning back to Amara. "Lewis, I have a proposal for you." "I'm listening, sir." "Become this base's official marksmanship instructor. Full salary, full benefits, full authority to train any soldier who needs help." The mess hall held its breath. Amara looked around, at the faces of the soldiers she helped, the ones who still needed help, and the ones who were finally seeing her for who she really was. "One condition, sir." "What's that?" "I choose who I train, and I train them my way." Davis smiled for the first time in weeks. "Deal." And in that moment, as the mess hall erupted in applause and cheers, Amara Lewis stopped being the invisible logistics civilian. She became what she was always meant to be, the continuation of a legacy, the guardian of a tradition, the teacher of a life-saving art. The ghost didn't return just to haunt. She came back to teach. 6 months have passed, and Fort Bravestone is no longer the same military base. The shooting range, once filled with the frustration of missed shots and repeated failure, now echoes with the sharp rhythm of precise gunfire. Amara Lewis, now officially the senior marksmanship instructor, watches her students from the top of the observation tower. Martinez is leading a group of new recruits. His voice carries the same lessons Amara once taught him. The weapon is not your enemy. Your enemy is haste. Breathe, feel it, let it happen. Thompson commands an elite squad through live movement drills. She flows across the range like water slipping between rocks, every position assumed with the grace Amara instilled in her. "Instructor Lewis." A timid voice pulls her from her thoughts. Amara turns. It's Private Rodriguez, a 19-year-old Latina who arrived at the base just 2 weeks ago. Her eyes are red, like she's been crying. "Can I talk to you, ma'am?" "Of course." Amara descends the tower and takes a seat on a nearby bench. "What's going on?" I can't get it right. I fail every test. My hands shake. My heart races. Yesterday, Sergeant Johnson said if I don't improve, I'll be transferred to admin duties." Rodriguez swallows hard. "I don't want to sit behind a desk. I want to serve." For real. Amara studies her face. She sees the same desperation she once saw in Martinez, the same mix of fear and resolve that she herself had carried so many times. Have you ever fired a gun before joining the military? No, ma'am. My family's against guns. They said I was crazy for enlisting. And you still want to learn? More than anything. Amara stands and walks to a nearby locker. She pulls out a clean, well-maintained M4. Not the usual worn-out issue recruits are handed. This belonged to my grandfather, Ezekiel Lewis. He taught me that every weapon has a soul, and to understand the weapon's soul, you have to first understand your own. Rodriguez takes the rifle with reverence, as if it were sacred. Let's head to the private range, just the two of us. They walk to a secluded section of the shooting field, far from any curious eyes. Amara places Rodriguez on the firing line and stands behind her. First, I want you to tell me what you fear most. Failing. No, go deeper. What are you really afraid of? Rodriguez hesitates, her hands tightening on the rifle grip. That I'm not enough. That my family was right. That I made a mistake coming here. Good. Now get into position. Rodriguez lifts the rifle, but her movements are tight, forced. Amara gently places her hands on her shoulders. Feel my touch? Yes, ma'am. Now let your shoulders drop. Let them fall naturally. Amara guides her posture with calm, steady hands. Position doesn't come from force. It comes from balance. Little by little, Rodriguez finds a natural stance. Her breathing evens out. Her muscles loosen. Now look at the target. Don't try to hit it. Just look. What do you mean? My grandfather used to say the first shot happens with the eyes. You study the target, get to know it. Only then comes the physical shot. Rodriguez observes the target for a long time. Amara says nothing, giving her space to connect in her own way. Now shoot, but not to hit. Shoot to learn. The first shot misses, but only just. Still, something is different. In the sound, in her posture, in the energy. How'd it feel? Different. More connected? Exactly. Again. The second shot lands near the outer ring. Rodriguez smiles, for the first time. Better, but don't celebrate yet. The real work's just beginning. They train for 2 hours. There's no rush, no pressure. Just a patient teacher and a determined student, bound by an invisible thread of tradition. When Rodriguez finally lands a shot dead center, tears fill her eyes. Thank you, she whispers. I don't know how to. You do know. You always did. You just needed someone to show you the way. At that moment, a shadow approaches. It's Miller, demoted to corporal after the mess hall incident, but still on base. How touching, he sneers, voice thick with bitterness. Another failing recruit saved by the great instructor Lewis. Amara turns toward him, her expression calm as always. Something I can do for you, Corporal. You can stop pretending you're special. You teach a few tricks, boost some scores, and suddenly everyone thinks you're some kind of miracle worker. He steps closer. But I know the truth. You're just a civilian with a good story. That's what you think? That's what I know. Amara walks back to the locker and retrieves another item. Not a weapon this time, but a small wooden box, worn by time and use. She opens it, revealing an old military ID, a faded medal, and a black and white photo. Ezekiel Shade Lewis, Special Forces sniper, 23 years of service, 147 confirmed missions, 321 lives saved. She hands Miller the photo. He never got public recognition, never made the papers, no parades in his honor. Miller studies the photo. It's the same man she showed him months ago, but this time there's more context. He's in a desert setting, surrounded by soldiers looking at him with awe. You know why they called him Shade? No, because he'd appear out of nowhere when people needed him most, and vanish before they could say thank you, like a shadow that protects. Amara takes the photo back. He taught me that the true worth of a soldier isn't in the medals he earns. It's in the lives he saves. And you think you're saving lives here? I know I am. Amara glances at Rodriguez, quietly watching the exchange. Every soldier who learns to shoot right is a soldier who can protect their team. Every life I touch here can go on to touch others. Miller hands the photo back, but something in his eyes has changed. A reluctant understanding, maybe even a hint of respect. Why do you do it? Why do you care so much? Because my grandfather taught me that when you have a skill that can save lives, you have a duty to pass it on. And because Amara pauses, looking toward the horizon where the sun is setting. Because a ghost doesn't die. It multiplies. At that moment, almost like summoned by her words, Martinez, Thompson, Gonzalez, and Williams arrive on the field. They're leading a group of fresh recruits, all carrying training gear. "Instructor," Martinez calls out. "Night class is ready." Amara smiles. "Rodriguez, you want to join them? Can I? If you promise me one thing, anything, that once you master this, you'll teach it to someone else who needs it." Rodriguez nods quickly. "I promise." As the group sets up for night training, Miller watches from the side. There's something mesmerizing about the way Amara works. How she turns fear into confidence, weakness into strength. "Lewis," he says as she passes by. "Yes? I might have been wrong about you." "Might have?" "Definitely." He hesitates. You think there's still time for an old soldier to learn a few new tricks?" Amara stops and studies him. She sees past the bitterness, past the wounded pride. She sees a man who lost his way and is trying to find it again. "My grandfather used to say it's never too late to become who you were always meant to be." She extends her hand. "Want to find out?" Miller looks at the hand for a long moment. Then, slowly, he takes it. "Yeah, I do." And as the sun sets over Fort Bravestone, something extraordinary happens. A circle completes. A legacy continues. A tradition grows stronger. Because Amara Lewis didn't come back just to teach people how to shoot. She came to teach something far more important, that everyone has the potential for greatness, that everyone deserves a second chance, that anyone can become more than they ever imagined. On the range, Rodriguez hits her first bullseye. Martinez teaches with the patience he once received. Thompson leads with the confidence she discovered. And for the first time in years, Miller smiles, truly smiles. The ghost didn't return to haunt the past. She came to build the future. And you? Amara turns to look directly at the person hearing her story. When was the last time you gave someone a chance after everyone else gave up? When was the last time you saw potential where others only saw failure? Because maybe, just maybe, there's a little ghost in you too. And maybe it's time to let it show. The screen fades to black, but the message lingers. Some of the most extraordinary people in the world are hiding in the most ordinary places. And sometimes all they need is someone who believes, someone who sees the ghost they could become. If this story moved you, leave a like, share it, and check out the next video on your screen. Thanks for staying with us until the end.